Jin wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his small mining ship through the asteroid field. Another boring day collecting space rocks, he thought. The pay was decent, but the loneliness was getting to him. 3 months without seeing another human face. His scanner beeped. Something metallic was drifting between 2 large asteroids. Jin squinted at his screen. It looked like a small spacecraft, but the design was completely foreign. The hull had strange curves and symbols he'd never seen before. "What the hell is that thing?" Jin muttered, steering closer. As he approached, Jin realized the craft was badly damaged. Scorch marks covered one side, and there was a gaping hole in what looked like the engine section. Whoever was inside was probably dead, but Jin's curiosity got the better of him. He'd never seen alien technology before. Jin positioned his ship next to the wreckage and put on his spacesuit. The airlock hissed as he stepped into the vacuum of space. His magnetic boots clanked against the alien hull as he found what appeared to be an entrance. The door was already cracked open, twisted from impact damage. Jin pried it wider and squeezed inside. His helmet light cut through the darkness, revealing a cramped interior filled with blinking panels and strange equipment. Then he saw her. A young woman was slumped unconscious in what looked like a pilot's seat. But she wasn't human. Her skin was a pale blue color and her hair was white as snow. She wore some kind of tight-fitting suit, but it was torn in several places, exposing her skin to the freezing air. Jin's breath caught in his throat. An actual alien, a living, breathing alien. He knelt beside her and checked for signs of life. Her chest was barely moving, and when he touched her exposed arm, her skin was ice cold. She was alive, but just barely. The heating system in her ship must have failed when it was damaged. "Come on, don't die on me now," Jin whispered. He tried to wake her, but she didn't respond. Her lips were turning blue, and frost was forming on her skin. Jin realized she was dying of hypothermia right in front of him. Without hesitation, Jin scooped the alien girl into his arms. She was surprisingly light, and her body felt fragile against his chest. He carried her quickly back to his ship, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? How did her ship get so damaged? But those questions would have to wait. Right now, she needed medical attention. Jin's ship had a small medical bay with basic equipment. He laid the alien girl on the examination table and grabbed a thermal blanket, wrapping it around her shivering form. Her breathing was shallow and irregular. The medical scanner couldn't identify her species, which wasn't surprising. Jin had no idea how to treat an alien, but hypothermia was hypothermia. He needed to warm her up fast. He cranked up the heat in the medical bay and added more blankets, but her condition wasn't improving. If anything, she seemed to be getting worse. Her skin was taking on a grayish tint, and her breathing was becoming even more labored. Jin felt helpless. He was just a miner, not a doctor, but he couldn't let her die. Not when he'd finally encountered proof that humans weren't alone in the universe. The alien girl's eyes fluttered open briefly, revealing irises that were bright silver. She tried to speak, but only managed a weak whisper in a language Jin didn't understand before losing consciousness again. Time was running out. Jin paced nervously around the medical bay as the alien girl's condition worsened. The thermal blankets weren't working. The heating system was running at maximum, but her body temperature kept dropping. Her breathing became so shallow that Jin had to lean close just to make sure she was still alive. "Come on, what am I missing?" Jin muttered, checking his medical supplies again. He tried everything he could think of. Hot water bottles, heated gel packs, even directing warm air from the ship's vents directly onto her. Nothing seemed to help. Her alien physiology was completely different from humans, and his basic medical equipment was useless. The girl's eyes opened again, but this time they were unfocused and wild. She was delirious from the cold, mumbling words in her strange language. Jin could hear the panic in her voice, even though he couldn't understand what she was saying. Hey, it's okay," Jin said softly, trying to calm her down. "You're safe." Now she looked at him with those silver eyes, and for a moment Jin thought she might understand. Then she spoke, her voice weak and shaky. "My name, Hana." she whispered in broken English. "Please. So cold. Dying." Jin's heart sank. She could speak his language, at least a little. That made this whole situation even more real. This wasn't just some unconscious alien he'd found. This was a person with a name, someone who was scared and in pain. "Hana, I'm trying to help you," Jin said, kneeling beside the table. "But I don't know how. My equipment doesn't work on your species." Hana's body started shaking violently. Her skin was turning an alarming shade of grey-blue, and Jin could see frost forming on her exposed arms where the suit was torn. The standard heating methods weren't just failing. They seemed to be making things worse. Jin ran to his computer and desperately searched through his medical database. He found information about hypothermia in humans, but nothing about alien physiology. He was flying blind. Then it hit him. Maybe the problem wasn't that she needed more heat, but that she needed a different kind of heat. Human body heat was different from artificial heating. It was constant, gentle, and natural. Jin looked back at Hana, who was now barely conscious. He knew what he had to do, but the thought made him incredibly uncomfortable. In human culture, this would be crossing a major boundary. But she was dying, and he was the only one who could save her. "I'm sorry about this," Jin whispered, even though he wasn't sure she could hear him. He quickly removed his outer jacket and climbed onto the medical table beside her. The moment his warm skin made contact with her cold body, Hana stopped shivering. Jin carefully positioned himself so that his body heat could warm her core temperature without causing any harm. It was awkward and uncomfortable, but it was working. Jin could feel her body temperature slowly starting to rise. Her breathing became steadier, and the grey tint began to fade from her skin. For the next several hours, Jin stayed beside her, sharing his body heat. He monitored her vital signs on his scanner, watching as her condition gradually improved. It was the longest night of his life, but he didn't dare move away. Hana stirred several times, sometimes speaking in her alien language, sometimes in English. She seemed confused about where she was and what was happening, but Jin kept talking to her in a calm voice, reassuring her that she was safe. As the hours passed, Jin began to wonder who this alien girl really was and how she'd ended up floating in space with a damaged ship. But those questions would have to wait. Right now, his only concern was keeping her alive. By morning, Hana's skin had returned to its normal pale blue color, and her breathing was strong and regular. She was going to survive. Hana's silver eyes snapped open with sudden clarity. For a moment, she stared at the ceiling of Jin's medical bay, looking confused about where she was. Then she noticed Jin sitting nearby, and her expression changed completely. She scrambled backward on the medical table, pulling the blanket tightly around herself. Her face showed a mix of shock, fear, and something that looked almost like betrayal. You touched me," she whispered, her English shaky but understandable. "How could you do such a thing?" Jin was caught off guard by her reaction. He had expected maybe some gratitude, or at least confusion about being on an alien ship. He definitely hadn't expected her to sound so upset about him saving her life. "I had to," Jin said carefully, staying in his chair to give her space. "You were dying from the cold. Nothing else was working." Hana's hands trembled as she examined her torn suit, and then looked back at Jin with wide eyes. You lay beside me. Skin-to-skin contact. Do you understand what you have done?" Jin scratched his head, completely lost. "I understand that I kept you from freezing to death. Look, I know it was awkward, but I didn't have a choice. Your body wasn't responding to any other kind of heating." "Awkward?" Hana's voice rose in pitch. "This is not about awkward. In my culture, physical contact like this is—" She struggled to find the right words in English. "It is sacred. It is only shared between those who are bonded for life." Jin felt his stomach drop. Bonded for life? Like married? "More than married," Hana said, wrapping the blanket even tighter around herself. "It is a joining of souls, a promise that cannot be broken. And you are a stranger, an alien. How could you force this upon me?" "Force it?" Jin stood up, feeling defensive. "I saved your life. You were literally dying, and I was the only one here. What was I supposed to do, let you freeze to death because of some cultural rule? Hana stared at him, as if he had just said something completely insane. You would choose life over honor, over sacred tradition? Every time, Jin replied, without hesitation. Life is precious. Honor doesn't mean much if you're dead. This seemed to confuse Hana even more. She studied Jin's face carefully, as if trying to understand an alien mindset. But surely you must have known. Surely you understood the meaning of your actions. Jin sat back down and leaned forward, trying to make her understand. Hana, I had never met anyone from your species before yesterday. I know nothing about your culture or your traditions. All I knew was that you were dying, and I had to do something to save you. You knew nothing, Hana repeated slowly. Then, why did you help me at all? What did you hope to gain? Gain? Jin looked at her in disbelief. I didn't want to gain anything. You were in trouble, so I helped. That's what decent people do. Hana was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. In my world, no one acts without purpose, without benefit to themselves. You risked your own safety to bring me aboard your ship. You used your own body heat to warm me, and you expected nothing in return. The only thing I expected was for you to not die, Jin said simply. Hana tilted her head, studying him with those strange silver eyes. Your species, humans. You do this often? Help strangers without reason? Jin shrugged. Some do, some don't. But yeah, helping people in trouble. Fear's pretty normal where I come from. We have a saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if I had been the one to find you dying in space, Hana asked quietly, what would you have wanted me to do? Save my life, Jin answered immediately. Whatever it took, Hana. Sat in silence for several minutes, clearly struggling with concepts that were foreign to her. Finally she spoke again, her voice softer than before. I do not understand your ways, but I am alive because of your actions. Perhaps. Jin brought Hana some water and basic food from his supplies. She ate slowly, still eyeing him with curiosity and uncertainty. After she finished, Jin couldn't hold back his questions any longer. So, Hana, he said, settling into his chair, what happened to your ship? That damage looked pretty serious. Hana's expression darkened immediately. She set down the water container and looked toward the small porthole showing the endless stars outside. I was attacked, she said quietly, by ships I thought were my allies. Attacked? By who? Hana took a deep breath as if deciding how much to tell him. My people are called the Villani. We have been watching your species for some time now. Humans are expanding quickly through space. Some of my people see this as a threat. Jin leaned forward, fascinated. You've been watching us. For how long? Many of your years, Hana replied. We have observed your settlements, your mining operations like this one. Most Villani believe humans are dangerous, violent. That war between our peoples is inevitable. But you don't think that? Hana shook her head. There are some of us who believe differently, who think our species could work together instead of fighting. Was carrying proof of this to the Villani Council. Jin noticed her hesitation. Was carrying what kind of proof? Hana stood up and walked to the porthole, staring out at space. Data files. Records showing that humans and Villani could benefit each other. Your species is good at adapting, at solving problems quickly. Mine is advanced in technology and science. Together, we could explore the galaxy in ways neither could, alone. That sounds like a good thing, Jin said. So why were you attacked? Because there are those who profit from conflict, Hana said bitterly. A faction called the Dominion. They control the military fleets of several worlds. If there is peace between humans and Villani, they lose power. They lose the fear that keeps them in control. Jin felt a chill run down his spine. So they're trying to start a war instead. They already have, Hana said, turning back to face him. 3 days ago, Dominion ships attacked a human research station near the Kepler system. They made it look like a Villani raid. Your human military is mobilizing for retaliation. Jesus, Jin whispered. How many people died? 47 humans, All scientists and their families. Hana's voice was heavy with sadness. The Dominion sacrificed them to create the hatred they needed. Jin stood up, pacing around the small medical bay. And you have proof that the Dominion did this? Hana nodded. In my ship's data core, security recordings, communication intercepts, everything needed to expose the truth. But the Dominion found out about my mission. They sent their best hunters after me. The ships that attacked you? 3 Dominion interceptors. I managed to destroy one before they disabled my engines, but the other 2 are still out there. Still hunting. Hana looked directly at Jin. They will not stop until I am dead and the evidence is destroyed. Jin felt the weight of what she was telling him. This wasn't just about one alien girl anymore. This was about preventing a war that could kill millions of people on both sides. Where were you taking this evidence? He asked. To a secret meeting point. Representatives from both the Villani Council and your human government were supposed to meet there. But that was 2 days ago. By now they have probably given up and returned home. So the peace talks failed. Unless I can still deliver the proof, Hana said. But my ship is destroyed, and the Dominion hunters are still searching this sector. Even if we could contact the representatives, they would never make it here alive. Jin looked at his small mining ship's controls. It wasn't built for long-distance travel or combat. But looking at Hana's determined face, he realized he might not have a choice. How far is this meeting point? He asked. Hana's silver eyes widened with hope. You would help me, even knowing the danger. Jin thought about the 47 dead humans, about the war that was coming, about this brave alien girl who had risked everything to prevent it. Like I said before, Jin replied, that's what decent people do. Jin was checking his ship's fuel levels when the proximity alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across the control panel, and his blood turned to ice. What is that? Hana asked, rushing from the medical bay. Jin was already strapping himself into the pilot's seat. Company, and I'm betting they're not here to chat. On the scanner, 2 sleek ships appeared at the edge of the asteroid field. They were unlike anything Jin had ever seen, black as space itself with strange angular designs that seemed to bend light around them. Dominion hunters, Hana whispered, her face going pale. They found us. The communication system crackled to life with a harsh, mechanical voice. Human vessel, you are harboring a Villani fugitive. Surrender her immediately, and you will be permitted to leave. Jin looked at Hana, who was staring at the scanner with terror in her silver eyes. He could hand her over and probably live. It would be the smart thing to do. The safe thing. Instead, Jin grabbed the controls and fired up the engines. Hold on tight, he said. The mining ship lurched forward just as energy beams lit up the space where they had been floating. Jin yanked the controls hard to the right, diving between 2 massive asteroids as the Dominion ships gave chase. You crazy human, Hana shouted, gripping her seat. You cannot outrun them in this ship. Maybe not in open space, Jin replied, sweat beading on his forehead. But I know these asteroid fields better than anyone. Another blast of energy scorched. Past the ship's hull, Jin spun the vessel in a tight spiral around a rotating asteroid, using its bulk as a shield. The Dominion ship split up, trying to come at them from both sides. Jin, look out! Hana pointed at the scanner, showing one of the enemy ships cutting directly toward them. Jin banked sharply, but he could feel the engines straining. His mining ship wasn't built for combat maneuvers. They needed to get out of there, but every path seemed blocked by enemy fire. There! Hana suddenly pointed at a narrow gap between 3 clustered asteroids. Through there! Are you insane? That gap is barely wider than our ship. Trust me, Hana said, her hands flying over Jin's navigation console. I can guide you. Through. Jin hesitated for a split second. Then another energy blast nearly took off their starboard wing, and he made his choice. He aimed for the gap. Tell me where to go, he said. Hana's fingers danced across the controls, reading sensor data, faster than Jin thought possible. Left 2 degrees, now right steady, deep. Jin pushed the nose down just as a massive chunk of space rock tumbled overhead. They shot through the gap, with barely centimeters to spare on either side. How did you do that? Jin asked, amazed. Villani are taught 3-dimensional navigation from childhood, Hana replied, already plotting their next move. Your sensors show gravitational fields mine cannot detect, but I can read space currents and predict asteroid movements. Behind them, the Dominion ships were too large to follow through the gap, but Jin could see them on the scanner, moving, around the asteroid cluster, to intercept them on the other side. We need to keep moving, Jin said. Where to next? Hana studied the navigation display, then pointed to a dense field of smaller asteroids ahead. There. The rocks are too small and numerous for their big ships, but we can weave through them. For the next 20 minutes, Jin and Hana worked as a team. Jin's instinctive piloting skills combined with Hana's mathematical precision to thread them through impossible spaces. She would call out course corrections while Jin's hands flew over the controls, making split-second adjustments that kept them alive. Right 15 degrees. Now level. Watch for the spinning rock at 2 o'clock. Jin found himself trusting her completely. Every time she told him to turn, he turned. Every time she said dive or climb, he did it without question, and somehow it worked. I don't understand, Hana said during a brief moment when they were hidden behind a large asteroid. Why are you doing this? You could have given me to them and been safe. Jin checked the scanner for their pursuers before answering. Because it's the right thing to do, and because 47 people died for no reason other than someone's greed for power. But you don't even know those people. They were strangers. To you. Doesn't matter, Jin replied, adjusting their heading. They were human beings with families, dreams, people who loved them, and if your evidence can prevent more deaths like that, then it's worth the risk. Hana stared at him in amazement. Your species really is different from mine. We are taught that survival comes first, always, that helping others is weakness. Maybe that's why your people need to learn from us, Jin said with a slight smile, just like we need to learn from you. The scanner showed the Dominion ships, finally giving up the chase, turning back toward open space. Jin and Hana had escaped, but they both knew this was just the beginning. Just when Jin thought they were safe, the scanner lit up like a Christmas tree. 6 more ships had appeared at the edge of the system, a full Dominion hunting pack. They called for backup, Hana said, her voice tight with fear. Jin's heart sank as he watched the enemy formation spread out in a perfect hunting pattern. These weren't just the 2 ships from before. This was a coordinated fleet designed to leave. No escape routes, Jin, we need to run. Now, Hana urged, but Jin was studying the scanner, his mind racing. They're positioning to cut off every exit from this asteroid field. If we run now, they'll catch us in open space where we don't stand a chance. Then what do we do? Jin's hands moved across the controls, powering up systems his mining ship was never meant to use for combat. We make them think we're more dangerous than we actually are. He fired the ship's mining laser at a nearby asteroid, splitting it into dozens of chunks that scattered toward the approaching Dominion ships. It wasn't much, but it forced them to adjust course. Clever, Hana said, impressed despite their situation. But that will only delay them. The lead Dominion ship opened fire, sending a barrage of energy blasts that lit up the space around them. Jin threw the ship into a desperate spiral, but one of the beams clipped their rear shield generator. Shields at 60%, Jin reported, trying to keep his voice steady. More ships were closing in from different angles. Jin realized they were being herded toward a trap, an area of space where the asteroids were too sparse to provide cover. There, Hana pointed at a massive asteroid with deep cracks running through it. If you can get us inside one of those fissures. On it, Jin said, diving toward the rocky surface. But as they approached, 2 Dominion fighters swooped in from opposite sides, energy weapons charging. Jin realized with horror that they were going to catch Hana and him in a crossfire, with no way to escape. Without thinking, Jin spun the ship around so that his side faced the incoming fire instead of Hana's. What are you doing? Hana shouted. The energy blast slammed into Jin's side of the ship. The impact threw him against his restraints, and sparks flew from the damaged control panels. But Hana's side remained untouched. Jin, you're hurt! Hana could see blood running down his forehead where he'd hit the console. I'm fine, Jin lied, struggling to keep control of the damaged ship. Just get us into that fissure. They barely made it into the crack in the asteroid before the next wave of attacks arrived. But their hiding spot wouldn't last long. The Dominion ships were already moving to block the exit. Your ship is badly damaged, Hana said, checking the status displays. "And you deliberately took that hit to protect me. Why would you do such a thing?" Jin wiped blood from his eyes and tried to focus on the controls. "Because you're carrying information that could save millions of lives. That's more important than my safety. But you could have been killed." "So could you," Jin replied simply. Hana stared at him in amazement. In her culture, such self-sacrifice was seen as foolish waste. Leaders were taught to preserve themselves, at all costs, because they were more valuable than common people. "I don't understand your reasoning," she said. "In any logical calculation, protecting yourself should be the priority." Jin managed a weak smile despite their desperate situation. "Maybe that's the difference between humans and Vellani. We don't always do what's logical. We do what feels right." Outside their hiding place, the Dominion ships were systematically checking every crevice and cave in the asteroid. It was only a matter of time before they were found. "Jin, I need to tell you something," Hana said quietly. "When I first saw how you helped me without expecting anything in return, I thought it was some kind of strategy, some long-term plan to gain advantage. And now? Now I see that your compassion is real. You genuinely care about people you've never met, about preventing suffering for strangers." She paused, watching him work frantically to repair their damaged systems. "My people have forgotten how to feel such things. We removed emotions from our society generations ago, believing logic alone would make us stronger." Jin looked up from the sparking control panel. "How's that working out for you?" Hana was quiet for a moment. "We became excellent at efficiency and terrible at understanding why efficiency matters. We forgot that the point of survival is to protect what makes life worth living." A loud grinding sound echoed through the asteroid as Dominion cutting tools began working on the rock above them. They had been found. "Looks like philosophy class is over," Jin said, his hands flying over the controls. "Hold on tight." He fired up the engines and shot out of the fissure just as the Dominion ships broke through from above. Now they were back in open space with nowhere to hide. But something had changed. Jin noticed that Hana was no longer just giving him navigation data. She was anticipating his moves, working with him instead of just helping him. For the first time, they were truly fighting as a team. "Jin," she said as enemy fire lit up the space around them. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know, meeting you has changed how I see both our species." Jin smiled grimly as he pushed their damaged ship to its limits. "Same here, Hana. Same." Here, their damaged ship limped toward a small grey moon orbiting a dead planet. Jin's hands were shaking from exhaustion as he fought to keep them in the air. The engines were making terrible grinding noises, and half the control panels were either sparking or completely dark. "I don't think we're going to make it," Jin said through gritted teeth. "There," Hana pointed to a crater on the moon's surface. "Can you get us down there?" Jin aimed for the crater, but the ship was falling more than flying. They hit the rocky surface hard, bouncing twice before sliding to a stop against a pile of loose stones. The engines died with a final, shuddering wheeze. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They were alive, but barely. "Well," Jin said, checking the life support systems, "the good news is we have air and heat for about 6 hours. The bad news is everything else." Hana was studying the moon's surface through the cracked viewport. "This place is completely dead. No atmosphere, no water, no life of any kind." Jin opened the emergency supply locker and started pulling out gear. "Then we better get to work. Help me gather anything useful." They spent the next hour salvaging what they could from the wreckage. Jin found a portable heater, some emergency food, and a small atmospheric processor that could create a bubble of breathable air. Hana located the ship's toolkit and some materials they could use for shelter. "There's a cave in the crater wall," Jin observed, pointing across the barren landscape. "If we can get the life support system over there, we might be able to survive until someone finds us." "Who would find us?" Hana asked. "The Dominion will assume we died in the crash and your people don't know where we are." Jin was already loading supplies onto a makeshift sled. "Then we'll figure out a way to get off this rock ourselves. Come on." The trek across the moon's surface was exhausting. In the low gravity, everything felt strange and bouncy, but the terrain was rough and treacherous. Jin fell twice, scraping his knee badly the second time. "Let me help," Hana said, reaching for his arm. "I'm fine," Jin insisted, trying to stand on his own. But Hannah had already grabbed him, pulling him to his feet. The moment she touched him, Jin saw something change in her expression. Her silver eyes went wide with surprise. "What is it?" Jin asked. "Your emotions," she whispered. "I can sense them through contact. You're in pain, but you're also determined, hopeful, even in this situation. How is that possible?" Jin looked confused. "I don't understand. Can't all Vellani sense emotions?" "No," Hannah said quietly. "We had that ability once, long ago. But we surgically removed it from our children centuries ago. We believed emotions made us weak, unpredictable." They continued toward the cave, but Jin noticed Hannah kept glancing at him with curiosity. "So you can't feel happiness, sadness, fear?" Jin asked. "We feel them, but very faintly, like distant echoes. We rely on logic to make decisions, not feelings." Hannah paused. "But when I touched you just now, I felt what you were feeling. It was overwhelming." They reached the cave and began setting up their makeshift shelter. Jin worked with quick, efficient movements, but Hannah could see that he was constantly adjusting his plans based on what he found. "You don't follow a set procedure," she observed. "Why you keep changing your approach?" Jin looked up from connecting the atmospheric processor. "Yeah, you have to improvise. Every situation is different. What works in one place might not work in another. But how do you know what changes to make without calculating all possibilities?" "Gut feeling, mostly," Jin said, testing the air mixture. "Experience, intuition, sometimes just lucky guesses." Hannah watched him work with fascination. "Your decision-making process is completely chaotic. By all logical analysis, you should fail. Constantly." "Sometimes I do fail," Jin admitted, "but humans are pretty good at learning from mistakes and trying new things." Once they had the shelter working, they sat together in the small bubble of warm air, sharing emergency rations. The food was terrible, but Jin seemed genuinely grateful for it. "You're happy," Hannah said suddenly. "What?" "Right now, despite everything. That's happened, the crash, being stranded, the terrible food. You're actually happy, I can see it in your face." Jin thought about it. "I guess I am, in a weird way. We're alive, we have shelter, and we're not being shot at. Plus, I'm getting to know the first alien I've ever met. Could be worse." Hannah shook her head in amazement. "My people would be calculating survival probabilities and making contingency plans. They would see only the problems." "Don't get me wrong, I'm worried about getting out of here," Jin said. "But worrying won't solve anything right now. Might as well enjoy the moment we have." "Is this what you call hope?" "Part of it, yeah. Hope, optimism, whatever you want to call it. The belief that things can get better even when they look impossible." Hannah was quiet for a long time, staring out at the barren landscape. "I think my people made a mistake," she finally said. "When we removed emotions to become more logical, we also removed our ability to see possibilities beyond pure calculation." Jin smiled. "Maybe that's something your people and mine can learn from each other." Outside their small shelter, the dead moon continued its lonely orbit. But inside, two very different beings were discovering they had more in common than either had imagined. After 2 days on the dead moon, Jin managed to get their emergency beacon working. The signal was weak, but it reached an abandoned research station orbiting a nearby gas giant. The station's automated systems responded, offering them shelter and supplies. "It's not much," Jin said, reading the station's status report, "but it beats freezing to death out here." They jury-rigged their ship's remaining power to make one final jump. The research station looked like it had been empty for years, a massive structure of metal and glass floating silently in space. "Human design," Hannah observed as they docked, "but very old. What was this place used for?" Jin checked the station's records as they came aboard. "Looks like weapons research. They were testing some kind of defensive system before the project got shut down." The station had power and air, but everything felt abandoned and forgotten. Their footsteps echoed through empty corridors, lined with covered equipment and sealed laboratories. "At least we can rest here while we figure out our next move," Jin said. That's when the proximity alarm started screaming. "No, no, no," Jin muttered, rushing to the station's control center. The display showed 4 Dominion ships approaching fast. "How did they find us so quickly?" The beacon signal, Hannah realized with horror. They must have been monitoring all frequencies. The lead Dominion ship's voice crackled over the communication system. Research Station Delta 7. You are harboring a fugitive. Surrender the Vellani immediately or we will destroy the station. Jin looked at the tactical display. 4 heavily armed warships against an old, empty research station. They didn't stand a chance in a straight fight. Jin, maybe you should give me to them, Hannah said quietly. You've done enough, I won't let you die for my mission. Not happening, Jin replied, his fingers flying over the station's computer systems. There has to be something here we can use. He pulled up the station's schematics and found what he was looking for, the old defensive weapons system. But when he tried to activate it, nothing happened. The system's been locked down, Jin said, frustrated. I need access codes I don't have. Let me try, Hannah said, moving to another console. Her hands moved over the alien interface with incredible speed. Vellani technology shares some principles with human systems. If I can understand the logic patterns. Outside, the Dominion ships were moving into attack formation. Jin could see weapon ports opening on their hulls. Whatever you're going to... Do it fast, Jin said. There, Hannah suddenly exclaimed. The system isn't locked, it's incomplete. They never finished programming the targeting system. Can you fix it? Not alone. I understand the technology, but I don't know how humans think about combat tactics. Jin grinned and moved to the weapons control station. Then let's work together. You handle the technical stuff, I'll figure out how to aim these things. The Dominion ships opened fire, energy beams slamming into the station's outer hull. The whole structure shook and lights flickered throughout the control center. Shields holding at 40%, Jin reported. Hannah's fingers danced across multiple consoles simultaneously. I'm routing power to the defensive grid. The system is ancient, but the weapons are still functional. How many guns do we have? 12. Laser cannons, 6 missile launchers, and something called a particle beam array that I don't fully understand. Jin studied the tactical display as another barrage hit their shields. The Dominion ships are staying in formation. They think they're fighting a helpless target. Shields at 20%, Hannah announced. That's their mistake, Jin said with determination. Hannah, can you lock onto the lead ship? Targeting systems online, she replied. Jin waited until the lead Dominion ship moved into the perfect position, then gave the order. Fire everything. The ancient weapons system came to life with a roar. Laser beams and missiles erupted from hidden ports all over the research station. The lead Dominion ship, caught completely by surprise, took the full barrage on its unshielded hull. Direct hit, Jin shouted. Their engines are down! But the other 3 ships quickly adapted, spreading out and attacking from different angles. Jin realized they needed to be smarter than just trading shots. Hannah, can you make the particle beam array look like our main reactor exploding? You? Want to fake our own destruction? Trust me, Jin said, manipulating the station's power grid. Hannah worked her technical magic, while Jin timed everything perfectly. When the next Dominion barrage hit, the particle beam array erupted in a brilliant flash that looked exactly like a massive explosion. Research Station Delta 7 has been destroyed, one of the Dominion pilots reported. No life signs detected. The enemy ships moved closer to confirm the kill, exactly what Jin had hoped for. Now, he whispered. The station's hidden weapons erupted again, this time at point-blank range. 2 more Dominion ships were destroyed instantly, while the 3rd was badly damaged and limping away. Impossible! The surviving Dominion captain screamed over the radio. How did a dead station... Sometimes the best defense is letting your enemy think they've already won, Jin replied calmly, before cutting the communication. Hannah stared at him in amazement. That was completely illogical, and absolutely brilliant. Jin smiled tiredly as he watched the last Dominion ship disappear into the distance. That's humans for you. We don't always make sense, but we get the job done. They had won, but Jin knew this was just the beginning. Now they had to find a way to deliver Hannah's evidence and prevent the war that was coming. With the Dominion ships destroyed or retreating, Jin and Hannah finally had time to focus on their original mission. Using the research station's powerful communication array, they sent out encrypted messages to both human and Vellani authorities. "Think anyone will actually listen?" Jin asked as they transmitted Hannah's evidence files. "They have to," Hannah replied, double-checking the data transfer. "This proves the Dominion staged the attack on your research station. Without this evidence, both our peoples will go to war based on lies." The response came faster than either expected. Within hours, ships from both the Human Defense Force and the Vellani Council were heading toward their location. Jin felt nervous. Watching the mixed fleet approach, he'd never seen human and alien ships traveling together before. What if they decide to fight each other instead of talking? He wondered aloud. Hannah was watching the same display, but she seemed more confident. "I sent them your story along with the evidence. How you risked everything to save a stranger. How you refused to give me up even when it meant certain death. If that doesn't prove humans can be trusted, nothing will." The first meeting took place aboard the lead Vellani ship, with representatives from both species gathering in a neutral conference room. Jin felt completely out of place among the diplomats and military officers, but Hannah insisted he be there. "You're not just a witness," she told him. "You're proof that our species can work together." Admiral Rodriguez, the senior human representative, studied the evidence files with growing anger. 47 people died because of this Dominion scheme. Scientists, engineers, families, and many more will die if we don't act quickly, added Council Member Thane, the lead Vellani negotiator. His silver eyes were cold with controlled fury. "The Dominion has already begun mobilizing their fleets." "What do you propose, Admiral?" Rodriguez asked. Hannah stepped forward. "A joint operation. Human adaptability combined with Vellani technology. We can expose the Dominion's deception and stop this war before it truly begins." "And why should we trust each other?" asked Commander Park, one of the human officers. "Our species have been suspicious of each other for years." Jin found himself speaking before he realized it. "Because we're stronger together than apart." Everyone in the room turned to look at him. Jin felt his face burn with embarrassment. "But," he continued, "I'm just a minor. I don't know anything about politics or military strategy. But I spent days with Hannah and I learned something important. We're different, sure, but we want the same things. We want to protect our families, explore the galaxy, make life better for our children." "The human speaks truth," Council Member Thane said quietly. Young Hannah's reports describe acts of selfless courage that our people had believed impossible in other species. Admiral Rodriguez nodded slowly. "And frankly, we could use Vellani technology to track down these Dominion ships before they cause more damage." The negotiations continued for hours, but Jin could see the mood in the room changing. Fear and suspicion were being replaced by cautious hope and shared purpose. 3 weeks later, Jin found himself aboard the first joint human-Vellani exploration vessel, the Unity. He was still getting used to working alongside alien crew members, but Hannah made everything easier. As the ship's cultural liaison officer, she helped humans and Vellani understand each other's customs and ways of thinking. "I never imagined I'd end up as an ambassador," Jin said as they stood on the bridge, watching. A beautiful nebula drift past the viewports. "You've been an ambassador from the moment you saved my life," Hannah replied. "You showed both our peoples what's possible when we choose trust over fear." Captain Yuki approached them with the day's mission briefing. Half human, half Vellani crews were becoming common now, and the cooperation was remarkable. The combined knowledge and skills of both species had already led to incredible discoveries. "We've detected something interesting in the Vega system," Captain Yuki announced. "Possibly the ruins of an ancient civilization. Vellani sensors can penetrate the planetary surface, while human intuition might help us understand what we find." Yenny smiled as he watched the mixed crew prepare for the mission. Humans and Vellani working side by side, sharing ideas and solving problems together. The Dominion had tried to start a war, but instead they had created something better, a partnership that would change both species forever. "Ready for another adventure?" Hannah asked. Jin looked out at the endless stars ahead of them. "With you? As my partner?" "Absolutely." The Unity jumped to hyperspace, carrying its mixed crew toward new discoveries and a future neither species could have imagined alone. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your strange human customs."